Hey friends, we are about to do a Q&A. So I asked on Instagram for some questions. So I got a lot of back to school questions, a lot of like classroom management, and a lot of centers questions, all of which I'm happy to answer. So I think I'm gonna go grab a cup of coffee. I don't know what it is about Q&As, but I just feel like I need coffee. Not really like to drink, more as like a prop. So I'm gonna go grab some coffee. You go grab something fun to drink as well, and I'll meet you back here. All right, friends, coffee's been acquired and questions are pulled up. I don't have anything like planned for these answers. I did kind of glance at them. So we'll just see what we've got going on here. So we're gonna see what we've got going on here. Now, before we get started, I do wanna mention my back to school bootcamp is still available. So if you haven't grabbed it yet, it is an online course that talks all about back to school things. So we talk about things like what you actually teach the first couple weeks of school. We talk about rituals, routines, procedures that you need, how to implement them, how to teach them. We talk a lot about classroom management and how to really start the year off on a good note. We talk about long-term planning. We talk about things like setting up your classroom and just all sorts of really good stuff to help you navigate these first couple weeks, because I don't know about you, but it was very stressful my first few years trying to figure out like what to actually do on the very first day and the second day. I have like all those things ready for you. It's basically like, here's a Google slide, go for it, have fun. And just lots of different activities. So make sure that if you are interested in that, you grab it. It will close at the end of September and reopen next year. So if you want it, grab it now before it goes away. That being said, let us pop into the questions. Okay. So first one is from Tori Lee, and it says, first year teacher and first day had a lot of blurt outs and chitter chatter, especially with the younger grades. Any suggestions? Yes. Okay, so with all students, but especially the younger grades, make sure you get their attention before you start talking. So if I'm gonna talk to them, I'm not just gonna bust into what I'm saying. Instead, I start with an attention grabber. So there's a couple of different ones that I use kind of often. My like normal go-tos are, I'll say macaroni and cheese, and they say everybody freeze. Or I'll say, if you can hear my voice clap once, if you can hear my voice clap twice, that kind of stuff. And then you can switch it to, if you can hear my voice at your head, if you can hear my voice at your shoulders, you can keep that one going for a long time. And then my third is I have a set of chimes in the front of my room, and if I ring them, the kids put their hand up until the sound stops. At the beginning of the year, we learn each of these. I pick like one a day. So on the first day, we'll learn one of them, and on the second day, we'll learn another one. And we really talk about how when this happens, you need to stop what you're doing, track Miss Davis, because I'm about to tell you something important. And it's also helpful to tell them like, I'm gonna tell you something important if I do that, because otherwise they will just like not realize that it's important. So make sure you get their attention beforehand and require them to keep their attention on you. I'm really fussy about the kids watching as I'm talking so that they're not like playing with stuff and all over the place, and all of that. The other thing is make sure that they get their wiggles out. You do not want them to be like just sitting the whole time. So if they are just sitting, then they'll get bored. So make sure you do like some active stuff, you do some seated stuff, you like kind of mix it up so that they're, you know, a little more engaged as well. Ooh, Ellen Ford said, how do you handle anxiety and worries about the school year? Oh, that's a whole can of worms. I think I have a blog post and video talking all about that, but it's definitely gotten better, I will say, over the years. I remember my second year of teaching was the absolute worst. Going back into school, I was so stressed out. I had so much anxiety about going back to school. So here's my best suggestions for that. Number one is figure out like the root of it. So for me, it was because I'm at an extra fun school, and so sometimes things happen. Like just today, a kid ripped down part of my bulletin board. Okay, those are normal things that happen at my school, and because of that, I was feeling so much anxiety about all these things that I had witnessed and all of these things that I had tried to teach through and all of these things that had happened throughout the year. And so I realized like that was really the root of my anxiety, and just realizing that and like kind of putting a name on what the issue was. I was gonna say not a literal name, but yeah, it was very centered on one particular child I could name, but I won't. And so because of that, I like had a lot of anxiety. And so I was like, okay, let's make a plan instead of being stressed out about this. And so I made a plan of like, okay, here's some ways I can improve my classroom management. Here's some things I can do to help those things not happen again. And also two other things that helped me with that particular situation, prayer. Y'all, I do not think I could be a teacher if I was not a Christian, because I spent a lot of time in prayer. Give it to God. Once I could name it, then I was like, all right, God, you take this and I'll deal with everything else. And then the other thing is that once you've been through it, it's kind of like, now at least I kind of know what to expect. So now that I'm in year 6, I really thought about it this year. You know, people asked like if I was nervous, and I was like, no. Like I made it through that class, I made it through that group, I made it, you know, and like I made it through all of these situations that I was like, it will be fine. I mean, there's some new things still, but we'll be fine. Your anxiety might come from something completely different. So just make sure you get to the root of it and then like make a plan. And then know that whether you worry about it or not, like it's coming. And so frankly, there's just not that much use to worry. So instead of worrying, think about things that you're excited for. So instead of whenever you find yourself like stressing, be like, stop. What am I excited for? I'm excited to make music with my kids. I'm excited to play games. Those are things that are fun and that I want to talk about. So those are the things that you should focus on. Next one says, from more K14, how do you plan for a program? I'm going to my 3rd year teaching, and so far I've just done 1 grade program. So a 4th grade program because there's 4 classes in that grade. How far ahead do you give classroom teachers as a reminder for dress rehearsal? Honestly, I avoid the kind of program. I have a choir, and so my choir performs a few times a year. And then I've done other things different ways. So one way that I do things, and also again, we don't have a lot of like parent participation at our school, so the likelihood of them showing up is very low, just being honest. Now I'm really good with my choir kids because I can call the parents. I like really drill it into them that we're gonna have a concert, and they're always like excited for it, so that's fine. But for non-choir kids, I have a really hard time with that kind of stuff. And then like the logistics, honestly, I don't want to deal with it, and no one has asked me to do it, so I'm not doing it. Now, that being said, I have done picking certain classes to perform. Typically, I'll pick a class with a teacher that I trust and who is willing to like practice with us. And so I'll work with that one teacher. I'll usually make videos of myself doing things so the teacher can play it like during recess and stuff. And then in addition to that, I'll have like practice times with them, and yeah, but I'll pick one teacher, and then that teacher can work on making sure they're all there. The other idea that I have done is to teach everybody on the grade level something, but not have like specific performances that need to be done, like solos or any that kind of stuff. I just teach, like, especially with the littles, I'll teach all of 1st grade a song, and then just whoever shows up, and that's kind of how it works. And whoever shows up, they're like, oh, that's cute, and then we leave it at that, and I don't worry about it any more than that. Is that the best answer? No. Is that the answer I'm going with? Yes. Can be Trav also said, how do you get them to stop talking to your neighbors? Again, make sure that we, first of all, have assigned seats. Secondly, get our attention before we start talking. Third, talk about what it is to have good attention and skills and all of that kind of stuff to make sure that they, you know, continue to pay attention after you start talking. And if they start talking, you stop, you get their attention again before you continue. All right, next one says, R. James Bond 007 says, how do you begin or introduce centers? So before we do centers, we'll do pretty much all the activities we're gonna do in centers in the days before. So I usually have 3 activities, so like the 3 lessons beforehand. At the end of the day, we'll do the activities we're gonna do in centers, but everyone's doing them. So like I'll have, you know, 4 groups, we're all doing the same thing, but it's the activity we're going to use in centers. I hope that makes sense. So then when we go to do centers, they already know how to do things. 1, very important. And then on the day of, I introduce them like, today we're gonna do 3 different activities. We're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, we're gonna do that. You've done all of these. And then I share, you know, our classroom expectations for centers and all of those few things. The first day of centers, I always make sure that I usually have a teacher group. I don't have one on the first day because on the first day I am walking around, I am making sure everyone's where they're supposed to be, they're doing what they're supposed to. And then the next time I'll have a teacher center where I can kind of stay more stationary after we already know what to do in my classroom. Ooh, advice for teaching K through 2 for 60 minutes. That's a long time for the littles. My best advice is to break it up into different chunks. And then I also would probably have a couple of things that are standard, like we always read a book, or we always do Go Noodle halfway through, or something like that. So I would break it up into different like sections. So like, this is our game section, this is our singing section, this is our, you know, whatever section, so that way there's different activities going on. It's keeping it fresh. I would probably maybe stop halfway through and do a Go Noodle video, or a couple Go Noodle videos, especially with the little ones, to get their, you know, wiggles out, and then we can refocus and get attention for the other half of the lesson. Yeah, that would be my best bet, especially with the littles. With second grade, you might want to do like the beginning half is like, we're, you know, working together, we're doing games, we're doing things in the front, and then maybe do some Go Noodles and then work independently. But with kindergarten, I don't love independent work. So that would be the best bet, would be break into chunks and have like certain sections. So like, we always read a book. That way you don't have to come up with new things to do. You just have to find a new book, and that's all you got to do. And that's gonna be a lot less stressful than trying to like find new things constantly. Allison Turton said, activities or lessons to plan that will let kids work in groups or independently, so you cannot be on constantly, and or you can be at your desk. This was the biggest revelation last year to me, is I, you know, always felt like I need to be like doing things 24/7. We're up, we're moving, we're doing this, that, and the other. And when I actually let the kids like work on their own, first of all, they learned more. Secondly, I am so much less tired because I'm not spending the whole day jumping around and singing. I'm only spending like half the day. So any centers activity will work in small groups, even if you don't want to do centers. I would go with games. So Kaboom would be my top #1. I'll link that down below. Write the Room is a good activity that they can move around, they can do on their own without a lot of help. Color by Note is a huge hit with all of my kids, but especially like that 2nd and 3rd grade age love Color by Note. So that's always a good one. You can do like roll-a-measure games, you can do actual worksheets, you can do like all of those things are things that you can do that will work. Oh, play-along videos are great. That can also give you a reprieve. Yeah, so all of those things would be good, and you just have to do a couple of them to kind of help, you know, balance out your lessons to make you feel a lot better. How do you unit plan? I'm trying to wrap my head around making units of study that include final projects or evaluations on big ideas. So I start by looking at my like main concepts I want to teach this year, and then I'll look, and I typically plan about 3 rotations, which is like 3 months worth of lessons on that. So the first month is full prep, second month is prep, introduce, start to practice. The third month is just practice, and then we move on to something else. I layer them so that we're not just doing those things the whole time, and so they kind of like, you know, intertwine a little bit. So I'll layer like the rhythm and the melodic concepts so that we can speed up a little bit, but that's kind of my main thing. In that, I do have final assessments, but I don't usually do like a big project at the end. So just the last day would be an assessment, and yeah, so start with how long you're going to have, and then come up with the activities that you want to do throughout that in order to make sure that you've got everything that you need. Jordan Fitzcarter said, elementary chorus, do you teach them how to read chorus music, movable do, or fixed do? I've taught before, I want advice. Yes, I do teach them to read music. They should already know at least the rhythm. Melody, not all of them know because COVID threw a whole wrench in everything of my life. But they should know at least the rhythm. I teach movable do just across the board to make life easy, and in choir we work extra hard on that. So typically with that, they already know the rhythm, like I mentioned, and we'll do like 5 to 10 minutes at the beginning of choir rehearsal. That's like our theory time. So we'll do like warm-ups, then we'll do theory, then we'll do repertoire. And during our theory time, we'll do some different flashcards that have like, we'll start with do, re, mi, we'll do like poison activities, we'll do like echoing activities with just do, re, mi, then we'll add fa, and then we'll add so. So it's a little bit of a different approach than I use if I'm doing, like with the littles, I do a so and mi first. But you know what? it works. And for choir, I don't worry too much about them writing the melodies or anything like that, but just reading, which also takes a lot less time because it's much harder to write than it is to read. R. James Bond 007 also said, how long are your classes and how often do you see your kids? My classes are supposed to be 45 minutes long. However, I'm required to take everyone to the bathroom. And so sometimes that takes like 15 minutes and sometimes it takes 5, and I just have to figure out, you know, which classes take a long time and which classes don't. So that makes it about 30-35 minutes, and then if the teachers come late, then it's even less than that. I also have 2nd and 4th grade after lunch, so if it takes 30 minutes to get through the lunch line like it did the other day, then we miss our whole lunch, and then we end up missing music because the kids gotta eat. So they're supposed to be 30, they're supposed to be 45 minutes. It's really more like 30 to 35 minutes of instruction. So I kind of plan for like 30 minutes of instruction. And then I see my kids every day for a week, and then I don't see them for a month. So I'll see them, you know, Monday through Friday, and then I don't see them until they come back from all their other specials. Rebecca Emily W says, I'm in my last semester in college and doing student teaching. I would love to hear advice for people student teaching. The most important thing about student teaching is get as much FaceTime with the children as possible. Like, do as much teaching as you possibly can. Talk to your mentor teacher, get them to evaluate you, get them to share like what was good and what needs help, so that you know, because if you know, you don't know what you don't know, and you can't see yourself, and so it's really hard. So ask them for their tips, ask them for their feedback, and spend as much of that time on your own as possible, because you know, after the semester's over, it's gonna be just you and all the children staring at you, and so you need to know what to do. So this is your opportunity to learn how to teach with someone helping you. Make sure you have everything you possibly think of down. Bring a notebook, ask all the questions that you have. Be annoying, ask all the questions, get all the answers, because again, you're gonna be by yourself and just you and the kids, and so you need to know as much as you possibly can and get their number so that you can text them all the things and be like, help me. Cello for Eternity, ooh, I like it, says, I'm starting my first year teaching. I get to teach K through 5. I could use suggestions for which curriculum. Oh, I think I saw like 3 that were asking about the curriculum. My favorite curriculum is Game Plan because it's very active, it's really fun, and it spirals really well. So that's the one I would suggest for your kids. I don't follow any curriculum to a T. I just kind of like pick and choose what I like. So I would do a couple things out of Game Plan, do a couple things out of this, I do a couple things out of my head, and that's kind of how I like to approach it, but not everyone does. Music Play Online, I just got access to, and so I'm still playing with that, but they do, I believe, have like full curriculums as well. And another suggestion, I went to college with someone who's now teaching in my district, and he's in his 2nd year, so he finally got a curriculum. He's super excited, but it's from like the 80s. So he said he goes to the curriculum, he looks at what it says, and if it says like do a hello song, then he'll go and find a hello song that he likes better than the one in there, but at least gives him like a map of what to do so that he can just kind of fill things in instead of being like super overwhelmed. All right, Deer Creek Candle Co. said, Center's question, do you use a timer? And when the timer goes off, the kids rotate? Yes, we have a 6-minute timer. When the 6-minute timer goes off, you have 1 minute to clean up, stand up, and freeze. If you beat that timer, you get a point, and then we rotate to the next center. So we do stop in between before they rotate, but yes, for timers changed my life because it's really hard to keep track of it without it. 333 Ali said, any recommendations for seating? I have K through 5 in a small space, no rug. Sit on the floor. 1, don't waste your space with a ton of chairs. You can use carpet squares or sit spots or something like that to mark areas out. I like my kids to sit in rows. I know that that is not like the most preferred thing. Most people prefer a circle, but for attention wise, it's much harder to get attention when the kids are seated across from each other in the circle than if they're all facing forward. So we always face forward in rows, and then I can spread them out a little bit more that way. And then if we need a circle, then we make a circle. So that would be the best seating idea. And yeah, just use all the space that you have. Jessica Hinkle 23 says, how do you structure your lessons? Do you have a formula for what you always include? Not really. I like my flexibility. So I don't always have the same things that I include, but I always kind of do, I guess I kind of have a little bit of a structure. So with the older kids, I typically do a movement activity and then 2 other activities. So like today we did, actually it was a game movement activity. We did a new chant. We learned a couple ostinatos with the chant, and then we reviewed and practiced rhythms. And so that was our 3, and we did like a centers activity where they got in groups and made rhythms with little cards with like back to school rhythm things. So that was today. Usually it's 3 things. It's always a movement at the beginning. And I would love for it to be like, you know, movement and then like whole group lesson kind of thing, and then like small group lesson kind of thing, but I don't always achieve that. With the younger kids, I have a structured beginning of the lesson. So at the beginning, we always do our welcome song. We have a couple people sing, solo sing. I'll sing, "Hello, Johnny," and then Johnny sings, "Hello, Miss Davis." And then we'll do a couple of solfege echoes where I just sing a pattern and they sing a pattern back. And then we do our I can statement, we stand up and do movement, and then after that it changes just depending on what we're working on. I don't like it to be too structured because then I feel like I don't have any, you know, wiggle room. So I structure the beginning, and I guess the main thing I always include is we always sing and we always do movement. Miss Shebard or Miss Hebard, I'm not sure, makes music, says best tips for teaching from a cart with no access to student instruments. Okay, my best tip is to not freak out. There's still a lot of things that you can do even on a cart, even in the classrooms. I have a whole blog post about this, so I will link that down below. I will link below a video I did during hybrid teaching when I was going in on a cart to the classrooms. And again, I couldn't use stuff because the kids couldn't share things. And so that's gonna be your best bet for ideas and activities and, you know, suggestions and stuff like that. But number 1 would be self-sufficient. Number 2 would be don't freak out. And number 3 is you can actually do a lot of stuff. So look at what you would normally do and then just adjust it to what you have access to now. And yeah, there's actually a lot that you can do. So it's not ideal, but it's possible. 2 more questions about curriculum, but I already got that, so 2 more. Next one says, Leanne G Music says, lesson plans for admin, what do yours look like? We have a format that like we're required to turn in for admin, and it goes into our learning management system. So I just go online, it's called It's Learning. I don't recommend it, but I just go in there and I add a new like topic, and then in there the things they always look for is you have to have your standards, you have to have an I can statement. They always want to see an anchor chart, which I think is not my favorite, but I usually put in a slide for my slideshow because I'm like, I can't have that many anchor charts, like it's too much. So I'll put a slide for my slideshow, just a picture, and that works really well because it's online and it's a picture that is already online. And then they look for assessments as well, and then for each day they look for beginning, mini lesson, closing is kind of like the magic thing. So having those elements are all important to them. I usually do my own much more simply because they always want things like very detailed and written out so that, you know, anyone could teach it, even though I'm like, I teach music, so not anyone could teach it, but you know, that's what they ask for, so that's what I give them because, you know, just always better to comply. And the last one for today says Grain McConville. Sorry. It says, how do you manage assessment? So I do a lot of formative assessments all throughout the year. Typically I see my kids for a week, so I shoot for 2 to 3 things that I am assessing or that I'm grading essentially for each week. So this could be something like today we were playing along with a rhythm play along video. I was watching the kids and seeing who was playing the rhythms correctly, and I just do a check or an X on their seating chart. So on the seating chart, I have their name and then have little boxes. Each box corresponds with an assignment that I write at the top. And so I just put check, they got it, you know, they're awesome. I put a line if they need a little more help, you know, maybe they got like half of it, and then an X if they need a lot more help. And so that just gives me a good like baseline to work from. I also do some written activities that we turn in as well, and at the end of the like units we'll do a summative assessment. And then all of that data I put into, of course, my grade book, but I also put into a spreadsheet because the grade book, you know, like goes away after, you know, things, and you got to enter things in weirdly because they can't, you know, whatever. So I put it into a spreadsheet where I can put like on a scale of 1 to 4 how they're doing, or like a check, an X, and a minus, so that I just kind of understand. And I separate it out into like melody and rhythm so that I can see like, okay, here's our rhythm chart. We're having a hard time with quarter rest. Oh, here we got it. Okay, now we're good. And I can do it that way. It doesn't actually take that long to do. And so again, mostly formative. I do a couple of written activities, but I try to keep it to only 1 or 2 written activities a week, or it's gonna be way too much. And so that is kind of my assessment situation. So those are all the questions that y'all asked over on Instagram. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I am happy to answer any other questions you have. So if you have a question, go send me a DM on Instagram. It's at Becca's Music Room, so that I can answer you over there. That is the best way to get me to answer. I usually check it every day or every other day, so I look forward to meeting you there. And y'all have a good start of the year. Bye.